You
Bring
can
the man
avenge
in. How do we get him in here? How do we get him in here? Someone help me get the man in.
You got
here.
you there.
Thank God Jeff's here.
Oh my
What's
God.
going on, fellas? Listen, I knew it was code Jeff saying it was power outage. He just needed that little extra time with the misses, but I only figured he needed like 5 minutes. So all he needed, he needed 2 hours off. So 5 minutes, baby. Now you're back. So that's good. You can't have the power go out. You know what I mean? It's the biggest day of the year. My goodness. So that was just code, guys. But I can share off the record that Jeff was getting down. That's why he's smiling.
Hey, Doc.
Off the record on air.
Off the record, he did say it's off the record. I respect that, Doc. Happy you're here, Doc.
All right, I guess I'll go first here, Doc.
Yes, kick it off, bro.
Yeah, I'll just kick it off here. Doc, 53-man roster, it's released. I just want your initial thoughts on this because we have talked with you over the last 2 months. Every single week. I've texted with you almost every day about this roster and what's going on. I just want your initial thoughts, like surprises, your favorite parts of the roster, and when you're like, I love that this guy made the team, or guys who didn't make it and you're like, I needed him on the team. What are your initial thoughts on the whole thing today?
Yeah, no doubt. First and foremost for the chat, after a 14-hour day, sitting in the chair, it's an old-fashioned made with bullet. Homemade. I got a bartender recipe. It's really good. And man, it was a fast 14 hours. Now, typically last year, the Lions released the official 53-man roster at 6. So kudos to them for getting it out around 4. That really helped a lot of the reporters. It was great to see. I think 4:15 it officially came out. So look, we do a lot of roster projections and predictions at Detroit Lions on SI, and so do the other reporters. And for the most part, we were in the ballpark of knowing a lot of things. I think one of the first things that's a little bit surprising is the 3 tight ends. I thought maybe they would keep 4. I thought Shane Zylstra did it a lot at training camp. Of course, Parker Hess, I thought maybe would be somebody that had a chance, but I had him on the outside. But I think that when you look at the roster as a whole, it's just really intriguing to look at how much better the defense is than it was in years past. And you look at the roster from the perspective of how much improvements it made. When Dan Campbell said there were only 5 or 6 spots, man, that made it tough because guys like Isaac Ukwu, I thought did a lot. Mitchell Agude did so much, and they don't even crack this roster. So Dan Campbell was exactly honest. He said that, look, this football team is going to have to part ways with some good football players. But first and foremost, like everybody else, listen, I don't want to toast people getting and losing their jobs, but look, Nate Sudfeld just didn't do enough to make this roster. And when it got announced, I think the whole city celebrated. Look, he may come back to the practice squad, but I just think that many people were kind of looking at the coaching staff going, wait a minute. Everybody that's read the reports on Nate Sudfeld was like, man, that we're not seeing that's a spot that's going to be earned by that quarterback. So once that situation was resolved and people saw, okay, the coaches saw that he struggled and they actually said, hey, this is somebody that needs to get cut. I think that, okay, people kind of settled down and were like, hey, something to talk about is Hendon Hooker and Jared Goff being the 2 quarterbacks on the roster. So a lot of people looked at that. And then the other thing that really catches your attention, it's not surprising to me, but I did see one beat writer leave James Houston off the roster, but you can't leave that guy off this roster. I think he has the skill that a lot of people would covet, and he would have been picked up so fast. It would have been something like unbelievable in regards to how many people would have coveted him. But, we'll talk about it. But the big concern I have, and you just have to be honest, because look, Brad Holmes is being praised left and right. Everybody knows collectively he's a great general manager, but over the course of time, his ability to evaluate and bring in consistent big-bodied receivers from the first go-round with Williams and Brashad Perriman to Donovan Peoples-Jones, who he traded for, Antoine Green, who he drafted, unfortunately gets hurt. The big-bodied X that he's been looking for to covet has just been really a disaster. And it's kind of concerning that, wait a minute, you like these big-bodied guys, but you haven't just been able to bring that person to the roster to be consistent. So we'll see. We'll see if, the addition that was made to the practice squad will end up coming to fruition, but a lot of people are nervous because of the injury history. So I like the roster. Tomorrow we had it all set and primed. But tomorrow we'll release the grade of what we think overall of the roster on Detroit Lions on SI.
Hey, Doc, can I get your background? Because we've obviously done watch parties watching these preseason games, and one player that's always stood out, Lauren Strickland. Obviously, the coaches love him. He's a hell of a tackler. Now, he reminds me, at least from watching him, it's like Brian Branch-esque how this man tackles. What'd you think of kind of the background with him and how he's impressed the coaching staff enough to take someone else's job?
Yeah, I was, like I said, you read a lot of reports. Your previous guest had a lot of good insights on Lauren Strickland. I thought that when you look at what he did, Dan Campbell said, look, to make this roster, you don't got to be flashy. You don't got to just be a superstar and just do things every single day. It's really the basics of fundamentals of, hey, do your job, make the fundamental tackle, be in position to do what you need to do every single day. And that's what Lauren Strickland did. Dan Campbell openly said it. And you guys are right that's why people kind of got concerned about James Houston. And me and Booner would talk about it being like, wait a minute, Dan didn't really say much about DPJ. Dan hasn't been saying much about James Houston. He keeps saying do more. But he did openly praise Lauren Strickland and said, man, we see him on tape just making the tackle. We say, hey, can you do this? And he does it. Can you execute this opportunity? Can you go out there and make the tackle consistently, fundamentally sound? And he did that. And I thought that Strickland really just consistently performed on a day-to-day basis. And I thought that he earned that spot in a safety room that's, defensive back that was not easy to crack. So I think dethroned CJ Moore, who I had, in just based on the veteran experience and his history, being somebody that had special teams prowess. I thought he'd kind of make it over Strickland by a nudge, but man, Strickland did enough. And it's a good story too. When people dig into his story, I think a good guy that's worked hard to get his opportunity. You like stories like that, those that kind of come from obscurity a little bit, not heralded, and you end up making the roster. Those are guys that I think Dan Campbell covets and likes because they don't get a lot of attention, but now you're going to know. Lauren Strickland, I think, is going to get an opportunity to contribute at times and do some things on special teams.
Yeah, it was great to see Lawrence make the team, but a guy that I was very surprised that did not, I'm just wondering if you had more background on it, was Kyle Peko. Because when he got cut, I'm like, well, he didn't play in the preseason even, and you heard that he was doing good in camp, and he's coming over with Terrell Williams. So what's the deal with Kyle Peko? Are they hoping he makes his way back to the roster? But I just was very surprised. What do you have for us, Doc?
Yeah, no doubt. He'll be back. He didn't play in the preseason. He did great. And so what ends up happening is John Kaminsky is going to be officially placed on IR. The situation that made it kind of where they had to do some roster maneuvering was the fact that Broderick Martin had to go on IR. So he'll miss the first 4 weeks. John Kaminsky is not going to go officially on IR until tomorrow. And then that most likely will open up the door for Kyle Peko to return. So there's no way, I don't believe he leaves anywhere else. I think he was a perfect fit. So I was surprised at first as well. But then when you look at the maneuverings of the roster, he's going to be back. He was great. He's consistent. And with Broderick Martin missing the first 4 weeks, it's a little bit of a setback for him. But when you have Kyle Peko, that was one of the first situations where you learned about him when I had asked Dan Campbell to tell me a little bit about Broderick Martin and his development. And he said, look, Broderick's competing, he's doing things, but you know what? Kyle Peko is coming in and making plays. And then since Dan Campbell said that, Peko you just notice him in the middle of the defensive line just doing things. And Alex Anzalone said, you know what? I can almost do my job freely because everybody's taking attention for Peko. And it's just, he showed up, and he was somebody that I think Justin Rogers did a nice feature on him. He had kind of bet out some personal stuff in regards to some family things that he had to overcome. But now that he's got the freedom, a little bit, some more peace of mind, I think he's gonna be a solid addition, I think, when he gets playing time. And I do think he'll be back on this roster. So no worries about Kyle Peko. I think he'll be a nice contributor to this defensive line, and it's going to be a strength. I think that what excites me is that defensive line. You know, you can talk maybe about some concerns on the edges, but I just love that defensive line and what they can do. And you didn't really get a chance to see collectively everybody together, but get ready. If DJ Reader shows up against Tampa, or if it's against the Rams, get ready, because DJ Reader is a monster, and he's going to open up so many things for this defense. I just can't wait to talk about it.
And Doc, obviously we talked a little bit about Tim Patrick, but is there any other free agents you could see them going after, or that you want, or any position you could see them targeting moving forward?
Yeah, no, a lot of people still are coveting Noah Brown. I heard that earlier. I haven't looked at it too much yet. I think afterwards I'm going to look at all the players that get cut. But see, to me, I look at that and you hear how the Lions look at it. They clearly Dan has a relationship with Sean Payton. He can get the 411 quickly on, okay, what happened? Why did he get released? What's the deal? And, Dan can say to Sean and say, look, if we give him this opportunity, he'll understand and everything like that. So he feels more comfortable. The Lions, when they go out and find other targets, they just do a lot of due diligence. And it's going to be interesting. It sucks because the Lions, well, it doesn't suck, but the Lions have the waiver claim at 29th. So if there's a really good player that gets cut and is waived and is a young player, it's going to be tough to get that player because the Lions have to wait, So if you play fantasy, you can relate. If you have the 14th waiver wire priority and somebody gets cut, you're just not going to get the player. You get your hopes up, but it isn't going to happen. I do think they need to upgrade. They need to continue. Look, they said that, in the release that the Denver wideout is going to have a chance to make this roster eventually after learning the system a little bit more. But I think you need a little bit more of a ready-made. And I did a podcast with Christian. He liked, I think he said his name is, and I agree. I think Isaiah Hodgkins. Yes, from the Giants. People like the wideout from the Giants. I was like, okay, I can hear what you're saying. But the Lions do so much work, and the players have to clear such a high bar. I was just joking around. I said, what about Equanimeous St. Brown? But he's been cut a couple times. Yeah. So his stock is a little bit down. I just think a family reunion. I was thinking what I said on the podcast was you just bring him in and put him on the practice squad too and develop him and see if he's got something. But he's also a bigger body, but he just hasn't been able to stay as healthy and consistent as possible. So I'll do a little bit more research tonight after we talk about some of those players. And we're going to have that story as well tomorrow on Detroit Lions on SI as we dig through. There's so many 1,000 guys get, to go out there and lose their job. It's unfortunate. It's a tough time for a lot of football players, but you hope that, some will make the practice squads and find their way to better situations. But it is tough, man. But I do, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I love the single cut. It's just boom. The Lions sprinkled out a couple yesterday, which was absolutely amazing, to kind of get some information, to kind of start to process that, because there's so much information to sift through and go through, and putting together your depth charts and rosters to have any information that comes out, I think it's great. And to get it done early from a work perspective, look, clearly it's never a good thing to lose your job or anything like that, but you hope that people put enough tape. And a couple guys, I think the Lions really did well. Ty Summers, I hope, makes it back to the practice squad. I hope feels like Jefferson could probably get claimed. I feel like he got highlighted, but we'll see how I like talking to Jamar Jefferson. I talked to him. One of my early pictures I posted on when I started reporting was Jamar Jefferson in the 7th round. He was one of the first people I talked to, and he's a good guy. He did some work on himself personally to get himself better, had those 2 touchdowns. So camp is about getting stories and for him to learn about him and kind of the work he's done to move forward. You hope that maybe he lands, if not in Detroit, somewhere else. Yeah,
John, with all due respect to Nathaniel Sudfeld, he just stinks, and we know that he stinks. But here's the thing, and this is what I want to ask you, because you've been there, and you even had him a little stumped the other day, John. The doc, I got to give you credit, had him a little stumped yet, and people were pointing that out too, asking him about the quarterback position a little bit, and he kept reiterating how they value experience. Nate Sudfeld, although he hasn't played a ton of games, he's been in the system for 3 years. What to you? How much focus should be on acquiring a guy like we talk a lot about Bailey Zappi or someone like that, because the room currently, you have Jake Fromm, who doesn't have any experience really. I mean, he's just started in a couple games, and then Hendon Hooker, who's never played in a game. Where are you at with that quarterback position? And I guess I would assume Nate Sudfeld goes to the practice squad. And I guess
that's the first. Okay, let's keep this respectful. Let's try to be pros here. I can't say he sucks. Let's just say he didn't develop at the level that the coaching staff expected.
There you go.
It was intriguing because Carlos kind of literally in that presser, you could hear me trying to get my words out, and I get cut off by a couple of reporters. But Carlos asked a more of a broad question. He kind of asked, "Why are you confident in the quarterbacks?" And Dan said, "Well, we feel like these skills could be done here to end the game, but maybe a different quarterback could maybe start the next game. So they looked at it, but he wouldn't commit. So my question was just direct was, hey, okay, you said last week that Sudfeld was a little bit ahead of Hendon Hooker. Is he still ahead of him on the depth chart? And Dan didn't want to give out the depth chart. I kind of thought it was a competitive thing too, to say, who's the backup and things like that. I understood it because there still could be roster cuts. It was a direct question. And I like that. I like the way he put it. He said, it's hard to say. So then he explained that, they felt like they could use both. But look, to me, I don't think you need to bring back Nate Sudfeld. You know what he is. So to me, you've already seen Fromm, and Dan Campbell raved about him. He said, hey, in just a handful of days, he picked it up. And even though it was against threes, he looked like a more proficient athlete. He looked like he had, that's what basically we wanted to see from Sudfeld, was what Fromm did. Just find the receiver that's open, dink and dunk it, and don't make big mistakes, and kind of have some confidence and swagger to you. So to me, I would personally just stick with Fromm on the practice squad, and you got Hendon Hooker, and he's got the experience now under his belt, and he can work with Jared Goff. So do you really need to go out and get another veteran when you have the quarterback coach that's seen it all, and Jared Goff, and Fromm, who's had a little bit of experience? I would stick with Fromm. Why not? I think that you went out there and brought him in. I think that you could also have a developmental quarterback that's on the practice squad. But I think that they like the opportunity that, okay, you can have Nate Sudfeld on the practice squad. He can be, teaching and doing those things. So it feels like that the tea leaves, if you read between them, it kind of feels like by the end of the week, when nobody claims Sudfeld, he'll be back on this roster, and it's going to bum everybody out. But he's going to end up on the practice squad, because what happens is I think he's got enough. Yeah, he's free to go anywhere at this point, but nobody's going to pick him up. Nobody's going to give him a contract. His tape was not that great. He was inconsistent, and he didn't move the football all that much, which was surprising that they didn't give him the chance in the preseason game to kind of show a little bit more. I figured that once they
saw enough.
Yeah, once they didn't play him, I thought, well, maybe he got the spot. But most of us put three quarterbacks in anyway. But now you can have him still on the practice squad. But it's interesting now if they roll with Jared Goff and Hendon Hooker to start the year.
He needs to take the JT Barrett route, Doc. That's what he needs to do.
It's a great example, by the way. Heard that earlier.
Hey, Doc, I got a two-part question here for you, and I know you already mentioned the wide receiver room, so I'm going to kind of go a different route with it with Tim Patrick. The first part of it is obviously, so the 53-man roster, they have 52 spots, and Tim Patrick obviously is on the practice squad, so they're still sitting with 52. Number one is, when Tim Patrick does come in, do you trust the injuries that he's gone through? Do you trust that he can come in and kind of produce and end up taking that last spot? And if he doesn't, where do you think Brad Holmes? I guess really they're separate questions, because really in the next 48 hours, there's that one extra spot. What do you see Brad Holmes doing with that extra spot? Do you think he has a plan, whether it is an extra quarterback or an edge, or maybe he has an idea of a player out there that he already has an eye on? What is your kind of thought on that? I know that's two separate questions. In my mind, it felt like two close questions. Yeah. Didn't turn out to be two close questions at all.
Real fast to address your guy O'Toole in the chat. Listen, yes, everybody talks about the backup. One rolled ankle away, and the person that comes in is important. And so, yes, Hendon Hooker, if he's the number 2, is very important. And who's talking to him, who's in his ear, is very important. The backup quarterback spot is huge. So, yes, and I can share. I have access on the website to live up to the second stats that I know when somebody's on the site. I know instantly if they're from overseas, where they're from. The analytics that Sports Illustrated has provided their publishers is sick. And so, take it for what it is. Hopefully you trust me. When I push publish on Nate Sudfeld is released, let's just say to the moon with the readers. And everyone was excited to read that. So it was crazy. I was like, holy cow. And that's just the way it is. So now, Nate Sudfeld, not popular. That's just the way it is. Facts. And forevermore, that's just the way it's going to be. I don't think he's going to be that popular in Motown. Now, you got an extra spot, right? So what do you do with it? I always look at it like the Lions now have to pour through so many situations. And here's what happens behind the scenes to give you guys a little bit of insights. So agents have a player that's been waived. and they got to wait and see which team is going to claim them. So that kind of you put in your claim, you got to wait until noon to decipher if that's the spot you get. And then once you go through the free agents, then there's a little bit more of an opportunity to decipher if a player can earn a little bit more money or take a practice squad spot. And so there's just a little bit of wrangling that goes on and negotiating that goes on between agents and teams to get the player to the best spot that maybe has a chance to play or has a chance to earn opportunities on a practice squad. So it's a lot of work for these GMs to try and figure it out. And I look at it like I would go with another wide receiver. I think that, you asked the question about Patrick, and I know people get excited about what an addition means, but I mean, to me, it's a low risk Emmanuel Mosley type signing, but there's not really much to get excited about yet because he's got to step foot. He's got to stay healthy. We have an article that will come out tomorrow on Detroit Lions on SI. I talked to the Denver site, that the SI writer there, and I asked him, okay, what he can do for this offense. Is he the X? And he said, yes, if he can stay healthy. I'll give you a preview of the gist of the story. If he can stay healthy, he is the X. He's the big-bodied X that can do the job.
6'4", 212 now, Doc. 6'4", 212.
He can handle business, and he can be a target in the end zone. He can be somebody that can run great routes, and he's a good, solid teammate, and he can do everything that Ben Johnson needs. He's going to have to catch up with the verbiage and all that kind of stuff, but the key there is, man, if you look at it, I think it went ACL 2 years ago and then Achilles. So that's tough back-to-back, and it just hampered him. But prior to that, that's why when the talks were coming that he could be traded, people got excited because he's low risk in regards to the compensation and things like that. You sign him to the practice squad. So I like what he can do. And so to me, but I would still scour the waiver wire and the free agency for another option at the X spot, because you can never give Jared Goff enough options. Did you guys see? Let me ask you, did you guys see what I've never done it. I've never done the let me go browse anonymous GMs and head coaches. And I could do that kind of stuff, but The Athletic does it every year. ESPN does it, where they go out and talk to anonymous people that they're close with. And many people were like, when I saw that, I was like, man, was that Sean McVay dropping bombs on Goff? But it is the age-old debate. And when people do their tiers of quarterbacks, they go, okay, and you really are getting specific here in regards to style points. People will debate, can the Lions win because of Goff or in spite of Goff, or is he the product of the system? Or to put him into tier one, you have to be somebody that forces the win. And I just think that for the Lions, man, it's disrespectful to Jared Goff to say that you don't trust him with under 2 minutes, or that the NFL head coach said that he doesn't believe that Jared Goff can win the Super Bowl. And the defensive coordinator said, basically, they've set him up where he doesn't have to make decisions, and he can just operate in a hit one read tight end, throw the ball out, screens. And I'm like, man, that's disrespecting Jared Goff. But honestly, I understand what the criteria is for tier one, and that is like Patrick Mahomes, like whatever happens, you can make the team win. Jared Goff does need a little bit more around him, but as do many quarterbacks. So I think he's, lower level tier one, top tiered tier two quarterback. But man, I hope that he sees it and uses it as fuel, because man, it's disrespect from an NFL head coach and a defensive coordinator. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, I did. I saw a bunch. It was blowing up on Twitter today. Outside of all the stuff that was happening, I was shocked. Yeah. I think it's pretty well known, at least I believe, Jared Goff's tier 2. We do our top 10 quarterbacks, and we have Jared Goff 7 to 9 every single time. So for him to be like guys, especially coaches and DCs, to come out and try and say that, like, it sounds like to me that they're just mad that Jared Goff cut him up and beat them. Like, that's all it sounds like to me, because he was one win from the Super Bowl last year, and it wasn't even his fault that they didn't get to the Super Bowl. So it just sounds like coaches that are mad that they lost to a guy like Jared Goff. Shout out Jared Goff for being that Detroit baby.
Yeah, that was. I mean, Doc, what are we doing? The quarterback conversation thing. we've had it plenty of times on this show, and we all kind of feel similar about it, where Goff ranks. We even did our top 10 rankings, and we all kind of had Goff in the same area. So, but people proclaiming that someone can't win a Super Bowl, like, or the win with or win because of. I mean, I saw Dan Orlovsky had 9 elite quarterbacks the other day on ESPN. I mean, what are we doing? And so it's a lot of it's subjective, but more fuel. I see it in the chat as well. I agree. More fuel.
Look at it from this perspective. Okay, the Spirit of Detroit podcast said Ben Johnson carried him. So that indicates to me, if you feel like you put together such an elite team that you don't need the quarterback, why would you pay him $50 million? You could just throw Hendon in there right now and see what happens. But it doesn't work like that. Jared Goff has intricacies in terms of shifting the play calls and knowing which receiver to throw to, and the route concepts and the play calls and the ability to solve problems. I think too, you're also seeing a quarterback in Jared Goff, and Dan Campbell told a national radio show this. He said, look, Jared Goff, when a defense lines up, he knows what's coming. He sees it, and he's a couple moves ahead. Like, he knows, okay, if it's a single high safety, he can go underneath, or he can have an opportunity to take it deep to Jameson Williams. Or he knows, okay, if there's bringing pressure in the box, hey, he can shift the coverage, the pass protection, and change the play to a different side of the field. So it's not that easy to operate Ben Johnson's offense. I just think that what's crazy is what gives it attention. It's from an NFL head coach. So this is what other coaches and defensive minds are thinking about Goff, and they're disrespecting him. They're saying, hey, if we pressure him or we disguise what we do, we can kind of take him away from things. And not many maybe thought it, but not many could execute it. And I just think that the offense this year, that's why, getting as many weapons for him is great, but I wasn't really too concerned about wide receiver 4. I just feel like this offense is going to be prolific, and Vaki's involved now. You got Brock Wright, who's going to get in the mix. You got 5-6 targets that I would throw the football to way before Patrick. So the concern level to me was low about the X, but because I think you can kind of reasonably say that J-Mo's going to take some targets and be successful, but I could see some question marks. But it is very intriguing because it's coming. If Goff wins the Super Bowl, there's going to be a handful of people that say, well, yeah, Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell gift wrapped it and Brad Holmes by giving him a top O-line, 3 offensive running backs that are great, the tight end all-world and all-world wideout. Many people could say, because you can't know the other side, many could say, well, Hendon Hooker could have won it too, or anybody could have won it. Bailey Zappi could have won it. I would not be in that camp, but there's going to be people that say it. It's crazy, right? That Goff can win the Super Bowl, he'll get the ring and host the Lombardi Trophy, and people will still not give him credit. It's gonna be interesting.
I mean, Doc, would you agree that 26 teams in the NFL would trade their starter right now for Goff? Would you agree with that?
I would say no. I would say right now 10 to 12 teams, because you do need talent. If you don't have an offensive line, guys, an offensive line, it's hard to build. You just see teams that struggle putting together offensive lines. The quarterback can look average real fast. Look what happened to Goff and this is kind of where the onus is in 2021 when you got Rashad Perriman and Williams and a run first OC. Goff looked horrible, and that's with Penei Sewell early on. So that's the difference, is that when you tailor an offense to what you need weapons, you need a lot of good things. It is a team game. You need the whole thing put together. But it is intriguing because when you look at Jared Goff, the question's going to be, and it's always going to be when it's debated, yes, he can get you playoff wins, get you to the big dance. But in those pressure moments, NFC title game, Super Bowl down, man, to me, if it's Jared Goff down 4 and the Lions got to go, and the Lions get the ball at the 20-yard line and they got to go 80 yards, my heart's going to be pumping. I'm not going to be like, whew, because that the pressure's coming, and you just hope that, at this point in his career, he gets over that hump and makes those plays, because he still has to deal with the stigma of 3 points in the Super Bowl, which many people say it wasn't all his fault, but a lot of coaches, I think because of Bill Belichick, said, look, we just figured out easily how to disrupt that offense. So He's got that one final hurdle to get over the hump in regards to gaining a lot of national respect. I think he's respected, but there's still a lot of talk that he's the product of a general manager that put together a great team around him.
Yeah, I still believe 70-75% of the league would trade their starters right now.
For sure.
Goff. So
I do think
that's where I'm at with it. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah, it's crazy, Doc, just to me, the fact, and I obviously Jared Goff isn't in the terms of Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. Like we do and I think a lot of people in Detroit understand that. He might be the only quarterback in the NFL, though, that puts the numbers up that he has done in his career and has won as many games as he has done and still just keeps getting the amount of hate. Like to me, it's a little more, it's kind of gets ridiculous, especially with people around the league who are peers to him and won't admit it. And like Dan Orlovsky's top 9 elite, like I think Brock Purdy's a great quarterback, but what are we doing putting him in there in the elite category after one season? When Jared Goff has had a whole career of, you know what he is. And I know I'm not saying Jared Goff should be in the elite category, but you have 9 elite quarterbacks in the NFL. Like there's 5 elite quarterbacks in the NFL. And then guys like Brock Purdy and Jared Goff come next. Like that's just how I am with it. I just think it's disrespectful for people to keep doing that to Jared Goff. That's just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, no question. Let's get into, we got some questions for you, Doc. So let's start throwing these up because I mean, we'll start with Jay-Z. Jay-Z question: which of the 2 cut draft picks come back to practice squad? Jamar Jefferson and James Mitchell. What do you think, Doc?
Yeah, I don't think James Mitchell, man. That was a rough situation in which he had a rough training camp, and for me, it was the drop. He had a clear drop that was an ugly play against the Steelers. So, maybe I would value Shane Zylstra a little bit more. Jamar Jefferson, if he clears waivers, why not? I think he's definitely worth investing in and having an opportunity to be a player that can continue. But I think Jamar has a chance to be claimed. He put when you have the 2 touchdowns and the work that he did, maybe some others will value it. But it's gonna be intriguing to see which players end up back on the practice squad.
I mean, even Shane. What about Shane Zylstra? What happened? I thought he was making plays in camp, Doc.
Yeah, he had a decent camp. Hess was kind of falling in that category of a little bit more versatility. He can play fullback and was really a solid blocker. Shane Zylstra did everything possible. I think he ends up, that's going to be tight too, because I think, to me, I always look at those kind of players that are close. There could be a chance. So he'll have a decision to make if he joins another team where he feels like he can have an opportunity, because for Shane, he can definitely work and develop in a comfortable system, but at the same token, to jump Rock Wright and Sam Laporta is going to be tough. So he might have an opportunity to shine and do something elsewhere if the opportunity presents itself.
Let's see here. So Brandon asked, Doc, any wide receivers the Lions can or maybe will trade for in your eyes besides the free agents?
Yeah, it was interesting, right? I it was good. I think that the fans here kind of have wisened up a little bit. They didn't complain too much because the Eagles Howie Roseman maneuvered a trade for Jahan Dotson for a third. Well, the Lions don't have a third. So I just think that I don't see them trading capital. I think they like to add capital. So to me, I just think that they'll make a claim or they'll wait for somebody that they can just sign off the streets. I just don't think that capital to trade for is going to happen right now. Maybe at the deadline, this is the year where he goes F them picks and just loads up, gets 2-3 more players to make everybody super comfortable. But I don't think there's a wide receiver that they would trade for.
All right, I think this might be the last one. I think we have some more coming in, but We'll start. Burning issues. Doc, rank the defensive units worst to first. Is it crazy that the linebacker unit is last with all the depth we have?
Yeah, but it's like one of those things where they're last, but they still have so much talent because we still got to see what Jack Campbell can do. Absolutely. I would look at it going linebacker, then I would go cornerbacks, then I'd go safety, and then defensive line. And then maybe, when you look at it collectively, the edge rushers are a little bit of a concern behind Aiden Hutchinson to see if Davenport and Houston contribute this year. But you look at it and you say they're still better than last year. But at the same token, you're looking at it ranked against the talent that they have against the defensive line. I do think the linebackers are going to do a lot more than people expect this year. Fire away. I'll answer as fast as possible.
So we got one more. Dat Boy Roy says mailbag. Who gets the first TD of the season, Doc?
Oh, big question.
I did my fantasy draft, and you know what? I kind of feel bad. I had 10th and 11th pick, and maybe we'll discuss it next week or tomorrow if you have me back. I went Puka Nacua and Justin Jefferson. So we'll see if it's to me. I think the first touchdown of the season is going to be David Montgomery. I think that offense is going to roll and they're going to handle business. And then last year, I don't know, for some reason, I got lucky with David Montgomery and Laporta, and I had a chance again this year, and I passed. So in fantasy football, but we'll see if David Montgomery continues to be the guy in the red zone when they pound the rock.
Yeah, well, Doc, absolutely. I'm with you on D-Mont. I appreciate you, Doc. We appreciate you. I came in late here. Right before, it's weird, guys. I'm not a man of theories, but I came back right when the Doc was getting here. I do.
Doc knew what was up. Doc knew what was up.
It's perfect timing.
Ironic. I'm not a big conspiracy guy, but it is what it is.
Okay, yeah. No, you could be honest. You told me that you had to give a little cuddle time. You can't just hit it and quit it. You had to cuddle a little bit. Tell her you loved her. Tell her all the feelings. That's good. You're a nice guy. You're not going to just kick her out when you were done. So you gave her the hour that she needed, and now you joined the show. So the power outage, you need a better excuse for that. Look, you're allowed. It's a Tuesday. It's a rainy day. That's when, sometimes they just, like a cougar on the prowl. They just will disrupt your day and be like, I don't care about your 8 o'clock show. We got to do what we got to do. And so you're a good guy.
Yeah.
You only need 30 seconds, Doc.
This guy had a theory as soon as he entered, and it's,
just a legend.
Of the four, come on, the chat will know. Of the four, of the five of us here, Jeff's the one that's going to be doing the spooning, in my opinion.
Oh my God. This man is on. It's not even Wednesday.
Am I wrong? I don't see Lucas or Gentry or Booner spooning anybody. I feel like Jeff's will put on a movie, get the glass of wine, and do the color thing. Am I wrong?
Glass of wine, Jeff?
Oh man.
There you go.
You should have left that over there.
I got it.
It's an high king horse. Jeff is the little spoon. That's right.
Yeah, well, hold on. You know what? That's where we should end it. Let's just act like that comment didn't exist. Doc, you're a legend. We appreciate you coming out. Kind of short notice too. You're a legend for that. Check out the Doc. Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated, and please listen to his podcast, Detroit Sports Podcast. Doc, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Man, yeah, tomorrow or next week, whatever it is. Cheers, boys.
Right.
The roster's set.
Cheers.
Let's go.
Here we go.
The Doc, Mr. John Maakaron, just
absolute legend,
out
man.
for blood.
Yeah, he smelled blood in the water. You know what he says? Water's warm.